Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, hope you've all been doing well. In this video, I'll be taking a look at Forza Horizon 3 for the PC and talking about how it runs on my system, which has some mid-level hardware. Now if you want, you can skip ahead in this video to a specific part. I'll leave timestamp links down in the video description for your convenience. Now if you recall from the last video I made, I showed some gameplay and talked about the experience I was having during the launch for people with early access. Long story short, the experience was horrible. I kept on running into an issue which would prevent me from getting past the logo splash screen, and the performance was outright atrocious. However, it looks like things have finally taken a turn for the better. Now I did quite a bit of troubleshooting initially, and that didn't seem to help. However, a couple days later, the game was actually working like it should have been in the first place. I could launch the game and it would let me in, and fortunately it wasn't a one-time fluke. I could exit out of the game and immediately reopen it. So that's great, I can finally play. But how about the performance? Is the game playable? Well yes, the performance is a lot better than what I had experienced initially. It's not nearly perfect. I still notice stuttering in a few areas, but it's far less. The menus still lag somewhat and the frame rate isn't consistent, with some pretty steep drops infrequently. However, it's far from the unplayable mess that I encountered during the launch of the early access. What still baffles me is that I'm still unsure whether they fixed something on their end, or if there was some kind of an update, or if there was something wrong with my system at the time. I was sure I had done all I could on my end, and I wasn't aware of any recently released patch, nor could I find anything on the forums. I guess this is a case of one of those situations where if things are going your way, then don't question it. But if someone knows anything, please let me know in the comments. Now before I continue, I'll give you guys a quick rundown of the specs for my system. I am using an Intel Core i5 6600K, which has been overclocked to 4.6 GHz, paired with 16 GB of G.SKILL Ripjaws V-Series DDR4 memory clocked at 2800 MHz. For the graphics card, we have an MSI Radeon R9 390 running at a graphics core clock of 1060 MHz and 1525 MHz to the VRAM. I've also installed the game on my SSD, which is a 512GB Samsung 950 Pro M.2 NVMe SSD. The reason why I mentioned where the game was stored is because some users were reporting that installing the game on an SSD helped reduce the stuttering, and I presume that might have something to do with the really high-res textures that the game has to load. The full specification list for my system can be found down below in the video description. I'm also using the latest game-ready drivers from AMD, Crimson 16.9.2, so a big thank you to them for having drivers out so early. Let's move on to the settings that I'll be using to test the performance of the game. I'll first be showing you guys some gameplay at 1080p with the Ultra preset, except I'm just going to lower down the MSAA quality to 2x. I've also turned off motion blur and VSync for obvious reasons. So at 1080p with the settings I just showed you, the game runs quite well. In the forest area with a lot of trees, grass, and bushes, the frame rate stays close to the 60 FPS mark for the most part. It's not a locked 60 FPS since there is quite a bit of variation. However, in this area, the frame rate is mostly within 55 to 60 FPS. So that's definitely an improvement considering I was getting like half that initially. Moving into areas that are covered with lots of shadows, the average frame rate decreases by around 10 FPS, with the frame rate staying within the high 40s majority of the time. Still, this is very playable in my opinion. Once I moved to a less congested area, where there weren't many trees, the average frame rate increases quite a lot here. Here you can see that the frame rate bouncing back and forth from the high 70s into the low 80s. Next up is Surfer's Paradise. And this area was concerning to a lot of players, and was reported to be the most demanding. This is probably due to all the structures of the buildings and houses, the increase in traffic, and also pedestrians, which include the crowd of the Horizon Festival. Well, upon entering the city, you guys can see that the frame rate doesn't take a big hit at all. We're in that high 50s, low 60 FPS range. Even running a full-on 12-person race here, within the city, the frame rate stays relatively close to what I was getting earlier when cruising around, with some drops occasionally into the high 40s. Also, that race you guys saw earlier where I was racing against the train in the Camaro, that was with the same settings at 1080p, in case anyone was wondering. Alright, so at 1080p, the performance is looking to be pretty good, and totally playable, not the mess I was experiencing before. Where at 1080p with the mixture of high and medium ultra settings, the average frame rate was in the low 30s. So at 1080p you can expect a brilliant experience. With the game nearly maxed out, it looks absolutely great. With the bump in resolution, moving on to 1440p, I've basically used the same settings that I did with 1080p, except I decided to turn off any anti-aliasing options, including FXAA. I think at 1440p, even without any kind of anti-aliasing solution, the game looks outright amazing. In my opinion, it actually looks better than it did at 1080p. Also remember, as you increase the resolution, anti-aliasing starts to become less useful. Also for 1440p, I decided to overclock my card right from the start to 1140 core and 1650 memory. Since this turned out to be quite a demanding game, having my card run to its full potential was definitely a necessity here. So in the same open area I showed you last time, you can see the FPS stay in the high 50s and low 60s, and entering the area with more trees, grass, and bushes, I managed to attain the similar level of performance that I did at 1080p. The frame rate stays quite close to that 60 FPS mark. The same can also be seen in the area with lots of shadows. The frame rate in the mid to high 40s here. This basically told me that scalability in this game isn't much of an issue. This is the way I prefer to play Forza Horizon on my PC, because I managed to attain a similar level of performance that I got at 1080p. Along with that, I also get to experience and enjoy the gorgeous eye candy. Some may not actually prefer playing it this way, because I understand that the variation in frame rate can be quite bothersome, and that's something I also don't like as well. So why am I able to tolerate it here? Well, short answer, FreeSync. So that pretty much covers this performance overview of Forza Horizon 3 on my PC, running at 1080p and 1440p. Apart from the performance, I must say that the game is really fun to play. There's quite a lot to do in this game. Like any other Forza game, this one comes packed with a huge library of cars to choose from, whether you like JDMs, American Muscle, or Euro supercars. There's something for everyone. I also wanted to talk more about the visual aspect of this game. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best looking games I've ever played. The environment is really eye-popping, the cars are very detailed, and the sky and lighting effects are on point. One of the really cool features that they have is photo mode. I probably spent a good 2 hours messing around taking photos of my cars, because I just couldn't get over how great everything looks. The included radio stations are also pretty good. Again, including a wide variation, something that caters to anyone. I mean, just take a look at this. Overall, I've been pretty impressed with the game. I mean, sure, there were a crap ton of issues and frustrating issues that I was having earlier. There are still quite a few things that they have to work out here, such as the occasional stuttering issues and the laggy menus. However, the game performs quite well when it wants to work. I still see threads being posted on the forums and subreddit in regards to the performance issues people are having. What's interesting to note here is that everyone is affected, not just people with AMD cards, not just people with NVIDIA cards. People with high-end rigs with 1070s and 1080s, Fury X's, complaining that there are still issues. People with 290s, 970s, 390s, and people with lower-end cards such as like the 270X and 950. So I mean, hopefully people are able to resolve those issues, and Playground Games is able to work out whatever the issues they might have on their end, because this is an experience a die-hard Forza fan will absolutely love, and actually anyone who's into racing games in general. Well guys, I hope you found this video informative and enjoyable. Leave a like if this video helped you out. Let me know your thoughts or questions down below in the comments section, and if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then hit that subscribe button. I'll leave you guys with some racing footage of me running the game at 1440p in the city, since I know I didn't actually talk about that earlier. Take care guys, and I'll see you in the next one.